Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Hearing Loss Association of America, North Bay Chapter. My name is Sarah Ozer, and I'm the president. Today, we are welcoming InnoCaption for the first part of our meeting. They will be here, and then they will be here and they will let you know how they want to accept questions. And then after their presentation, after we've had plenty of Q&A, we will have the chapter general meeting where I'll be giving you some update information and some important information about what's going on in the rest of May, June, July, and August. So thank you so much for being here. You can activate the captions at the bottom of your screen. And now I would like to welcome three people. Matt Gonsalves, the marketing director. Matt, can you wave? Can you wave? Yeah, there he is. I'd like to welcome Paul Lee, CFO of InnoCaption. I'd like to welcome Christina Duarte from InnoCaption. And now I'd like to hand the meeting over to you. Thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate it. And we know it's quality, not quantity, in regard to people and everything.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the introduction. I'm going to be sharing the PowerPoint in a minute or so, but before we do that, we just want to let everybody know that throughout the presentation, if anybody has any questions about anything that we've covered, if you need us to back up a little bit and go over it again, let us know. We don't have to wait until the end of the presentation to take questions. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share our PowerPoint presentation. And Christina, let me know how everything looks on your end.
Everything looks okay here.
All right, Paul, do you want to get us started?
Sure, sounds good. Matt, if you could just go to the next slide. We're the InnoCaption team here, and we are super excited to have this opportunity to meet with every one of you here, and hopefully more through the recorded video. But we are very excited to be able to share a bit more around our InnoCaption app, our service, provide you with a little bit more updates on some of the recent features and changes that have been implemented on the app, and also open it up for a lot of Q&A at the end in case you have any questions at all or need support at all. We're more than happy to help you and answer anything that you may have on your mind. Next slide. Yep. So just to introduce us a little bit. So as mentioned before, my name is Paul. I'm the CFO of InnoCaption. I'm currently based in Irvine in Southern California, so not too far away from everyone here. Our company is actually headquartered here in Southern California, but we also have an office in Virginia where both Matt and Christina, my colleagues here, are based out of. So they're actually on East Coast time. We're really happy to be able to join this meeting. A quick fun fact on my side, I did live in the Bay Area for 3 years before, and actually got married in San Francisco City Hall. And so very fond of the Bay Area and the Golden Gate Bridge and everywhere around there. In terms of the rest of my teammates here, Matt is our marketing director. He's in charge of our outreach and marketing to users. Pre-COVID times, he was out on the road a lot, doing a lot of these presentations in person as well. And I'm not sure, but perhaps has even had chances to interact with some folks here before in the past. Fun fact on Matt's side, he's grew up in Brazil, and I think he desperately wants to come out to California to get more sun because Virginia doesn't have enough of it. And then Christina is our Director of Regulatory Affairs. She is in charge of all of our FCC relations, everything compliance and legal related as well, but is also very active in our outreach to our users and communicating directly with users as well. Fun fact on Christina's side, she's been a big community advocate for the deaf and hard of hearing community her entire life, as she grew up in a deaf household with two parents who both received cochlear implants later in life, and so is very much aware of the needs and accessibility needs in the community. So with that, we'll get started with introducing our company and then our service. We at InnoCaption, our mission is to offer the best telecommunications accessibility solution to the deaf and hard of hearing community. And what we take pride in terms of our differentiation and our uniqueness as a company is in terms of how we listen to our users, and we really try to put our users first. And we like to say that our users are the ones that actually drive our innovation and technological evolution, and that is because we really try to listen to individuals' needs and try to offer the best technology that we possibly can that can meet as many needs as we can hear about and take in. And so we're, everyone on this call, for instance, has been super active, especially over the last few weeks with a new update that we've rolled out. We've been actually helping user support tickets. So when you message us for help and support, it might be someone that's full-time doing customer support. It actually might be one of us as well. We're always very much actively involved in direct communications with our users so that we can take all of the things that we are hearing and learning and communicate that to our engineering and product development team as well. And so with that, I will turn it over to Matt for the next part of the presentation to walk us through a bit more around our app.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. And before we move on to the next slide, I always like telling people the person that you're looking at right now on your screen, that's one of our co-CEOs. That's Joe Duarte. Joe, like Paul mentioned, was born with a profound hearing loss. So not only do we have a co-CEO who understands what it is to have a hearing loss and grow up with one, but he's also one of our main users. So Joe is always pushing us to make the app better and better for the community. Okay, so Paul did talk about who we are, so I'm gonna cover what is the InnoCaption app. And the InnoCaption app is a mobile app that provides real-time captioning of phone calls for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. If you're familiar with landline captioning phones, the idea is almost the same, except we execute it in a different way. When we launched the InnoCaption app in 2016, the main difference between our app and everybody else was that back then we were the only ones providing, and we still continue to be the only ones providing caption through stenographers. So we have a real person typing what's being said. Because of that, the delay that most people have been used to experience with landline phones, our delay is a lot shorter and our accuracy is a lot higher. Now, in 2016, when we launched the app, that was the only way how we provided captions. However, as of a year or so ago, we've also introduced ASR to InnoCaption, and I'll cover that as well in a few slides. These are two of the questions that we always get when we start talking to people about InnoCaption. First of, who is InnoCaption for? Well, anyone in the United States who need captions to understand their phone calls due to a hearing loss is eligible to use our service. What that means is if you have a hearing loss, you can download and start using the InnoCaption app. And of course, you do have to live in the United States. The second question is, okay, that's great, but how much does it cost? Well, the good news is that our service is offered free of charge because we are certified by the FCC and funded by Telecommunications Relay Services Fund. So if you're unsure whether you want to try out InnoCaption or not, well, you can do it for free. You can download it, you can make a call, you can see if that works for you. If you don't like it, delete it. But at the end of the day, it won't cost you anything to make or receive calls to the InnoCaption app. Well, this is the question that I like getting the most. How do I get started with InnoCaption? And the process, it's really simple. It's basically what you're looking at in your screen right now. The number one step is downloading the app. If you have an iPhone, you can go on the App Store. If you have an Android, you go on the Play Store, you search for InnoCaption, you download the app. As soon as you're finished downloading the app, you'll receive an email from our support team with the follow-up steps. And what are those steps? Well, it's basically what you're looking at. Second step is registering for the app on our website. The third step is activating the app on your phone. After 1, 2, and 3 are done, you can start making and receiving calls with captions through the InnoCaption app. Now, as I mentioned before, when we first launched InnoCaption, we were providing users with captions through stenographers only. However, we've also incorporated automated speech recognition technology, and I'm going to have Christina talk to you guys a little bit about why we provided users with this choice.
Thanks, Matt. So a few years ago, we started hearing from our user base that they wanted us to look into doing research and development about automatic speech recognition. As somebody who grew up in the deaf and hard of hearing community, I didn't understand it at first because as far as I was concerned, CART provides such a high level of accuracy, and my experience with automatic speech recognition hadn't been a good one. But I was able to talk to some community members, and I like to share their reasoning behind requesting the service, because I think within the community, it's pretty 50-50 at this point. Some people love it and some people hate it. I was talking to a user who explained to me that he was in a long distance relationship and he understood his girlfriend's voice pretty well over the phone, but needed captions as a backup. And for him, he didn't really feel comfortable having these intimate calls with his girlfriend, knowing there was a third party on the line. We've had other individuals who have explained they don't feel like functional equivalence will ever be met until you don't have a third party on the line, ranging to others who have said, I just want to be able to switch away from a CART provider if I'm on a 2-hour hold, because I don't like feeling like I'm taking resources away from somebody else. So, you know, there's a vast spectrum of people and reasons that ASR is requested. The more I've had the opportunity to use it and test it and experience it, I really like it. It's great when it works. The speed is really unparalleled. It's a computer. With CART gives people a human aspect that automatic speech recognition just can't. Automatic speech recognition provides verbatim captioning. So whatever it hears, it spits out. CART providers are able to provide parentheticals like laughing, dogs barking in the background, poor connection, prompts that, especially for members of the community that don't have high levels of speech discrimination, can be incredibly helpful to enable them to say things like, oh, I'm sorry, can you move closer to the phone? Or what kind of dog do you have? With automatic speech recognition, as you can see here, my voice processes really well. And Matt's voice processes really well. Paul's does. Our co-CEO, Joe, was born in Portugal with a profound hearing loss. His captions on automatic speech recognition are garbage. They're not usable. You'll see similar things with like small children. Tiny human beings don't have regular speech patterns. So they confuse computers, and their captions are also not very good. I was listening to a webinar and using InnoCaption testing, and I would have put money down the speaker that I was listening to would have had really good captioning on automatic speech recognition. She was a very clear speaker, and she didn't. So I took a step back and I was really listening, and I realized her voice was shaking. So she was nervous. So with the shaking in her voice, it was throwing off the automatic speech recognition. So both of these technologies are really great. Obviously, CART is awesome. We love our CART providers. Automatic speech recognition is great too, but to really ensure our users have the functional equivalence that they want, and to make sure that on each call, you have the ability to choose which one based on the speaker, even in the middle of a call, works for you, we've implemented a captioning mode, a switching mechanism that allows you to choose between the two of them. This feature was born because our co-CEO Joe was testing out automatic speech recognition for all of his calls before we released a beta or anything. And he had called into an airline. The first part of the call went really well. Computers understand computers, so the automated system, it flowed through. He was on a significant hold and then was connected to a representative whose voice patterns didn't work well with automatic speech recognition. So in that moment, he was in a position where he either had to disconnect the call and try again after that significant hold, or ask somebody in the office for help, which, you know, defeats the purpose of having an accessible technology if you have to rely on a third party to help you with the call. So in that moment, he said, we need to figure out how we can let our users, even in the middle of a call, switch if the captions aren't working for them. And at that time, everybody said, you know, that's not technologically feasible. And as he likes to remind everybody, it's not technologically feasible yet. I believe in you guys, you can do it. And I say you guys like I have anything to do with engineering. I do not. But our engineers are great and they did figure it out. So this is one of the features that we're incredibly proud of. We're the only ones on the market that have this hybrid system. And instead of dictating ourselves what we think our users need, we let you guys decide, and not just at the beginning of the call, but even in the middle. As you can see here with that little button in the upper right-hand corner. If you download today, by the way, we're going to talk about that Apple update. It's a little different on iPhone now, but we do have screenshots later in the presentation. But here, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and it'll say either ASR for automatic speech recognition or CA for communications assistant, but that's a CART provider. And you can switch between them as your accessibility needs change. Matt, you can go on to the next slide. So privacy, this is one of the #1 questions that we get from our users. And understandably so, we're in an incredibly technical world. Everybody's asking for your information. And there's nothing quite as personal as your phone calls. We take our user privacy very seriously. And our compliance procedures are actually regulated and audited by the Federal Communications Commission. When you're using a CART provider for your call, these are highly trained individuals who are used to working in confidential backgrounds. They work in secure areas, they undergo background checks for us before they get on the system, and they undergo compliance training. Additionally, they're used to working in confidential areas. Our CART providers work in courtrooms, contract for DOJ, academia. So they are very familiar with confidentiality and ensuring the confidentiality of content. On top of all of that, our captioners only listen to one side of the conversation. They can't hear what the other party or what you are saying. They only hear the party that they're actually captioning. I don't know if you've ever tried to get full context after listening to half of a conversation. It's actually incredibly difficult. The exception to that rule is some conference call situations, depending on how the user calls in. On conference call lines where you can hear all parties, the captioner can hear you as well. Your call transcripts are never saved on our servers. So you have permissions to either save them on your phone. You can set it so they always save. So they only save when you say you want them to save, or they never save. We cannot recover your transcripts. And the system was designed that way. We've had people reach out to us and say, oh, I deleted this important call and I really need it. Can you please get it back for me? And the answer is no. Even if we really, really want to, once you delete it, it's gone forever. And obviously that's the way that it needs to be, because confidentiality and privacy are so important. When you take your call using our ASR engine, we don't log any of that call audio. And what I mean by that is none of the data is used for machine learning. In all the conversations about automatic speech recognition, what frequently comes up is concerns about privacy, because the way ASR generally works is with machine learning, so it gets smarter and smarter. On InnoCaption, that doesn't happen. We actually pay more to ensure that no data logging or machine learning happens on our system.
All right. Thanks, Christina. We're about to move into the key features available on the InnoCaption app. But before we do that, does anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered so far? If not, I'll keep going. Do we have a hand? Oh, we have hands. All right.
Yeah, we do.
I'd like to know how you signal that you want to change to captions. I saw that you had changed, but what button do you push to make that happen?
Sure. So Sarah, are you asking me because you have the InnoCaption app? Okay. Okay. I just, because depending on what was in front of you, I didn't know what you were looking at. So on this particular slide, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen where we have it circled in yellow, that is before a call where you can put how you want the call to go through. I know it's small, but it says ASR. So if you were to leave it that way, the call would be placed using ASR. If it said CA, you could click, it'll give you a list. And if it says CA, it'll go through using CART. Our app actually explains very well. If you open it, it tells you in the list of options what you're selecting. In the middle of a call, on this second screen, you see in the upper right-hand corner, if you have an Android, that is still how it looks. It's in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If you have an iPhone, and we'll show you the screenshots a little later, it'll be on the bottom right next to the disconnect. But both buttons say ASR or CA. And when you click it, it comes up with a prompt. And it says, do you want to change to CA mode, or do you want to change to ASR mode? And you click yes. Or no, if you change your mind and you don't want to switch. Okay, Alan.
All right. So my situation is a little bit different in that I do not have a hearing loss, but yet I work with people with hearing loss a lot. And I've met Matt before, and I asked him about being able to have an account to be able to demo it, and he wasn't able to actually give me a reply at that time.
You will be very happy to hear, Alan, we actually have streamlined the demo process. So because we had so many people such as yourself asking for demo accounts, if you go to the InnoCaption, www.innocaption.com, and you click register, right underneath the registration, it says request demo account. And you can get it. It is limited to 3 minutes per call. And that's because obviously you should be able to demo it in 3 minutes, but it is the full version of the app. So you should be able to show everyone.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Alan, we're gonna leave our information up at the end. Christina is the one that processes the demo accounts. We'll get your information as well to make sure that you're all set up and ready to demo the app after.
Okay, thank you.
Tana, did you have a question? Tana, you're on mute.
I don't see very well. I thought I hit the mic, so I'm not on mute anymore.
No, we can hear you.
I have two questions. The first is, are you using any particular company for your ASR, or do you have your own?
That's a great question. So we use Google. We're the only company that's publicly put on the record who we're using, but we also use, on top of Google, we have our own proprietary tweaks that we do to the technology based on user feedback and usability to ensure that the captions are high quality. So yeah, the base is Google, and then our engineers do some other things within that.
My experience is that Google is much better than Otter, or whatever ASR Zoom is using. So I'm glad to hear that you use Google. The second question may be ahead of what you're saying, but is it possible to start a call without using InnoCaption and then add it during the call?
So it is not, but there are two options. With our new update on Apple, and hopefully we'll have it on Android by the end of the summer. That's the unofficial timeline. If you are calling from Apple, there's a caption off button. We had users that say they do need captions for most of their calls, but every once in a while, they may be talking to somebody like a parent or somebody they know 100% they won't need captions for. Now you can turn the captions off and it'll disconnect them. If you
So
choose
My
to,
understanding is that if I start a call with InnoCaption, the number that the other person received is not my number, it's InnoCaption's number.
Oh,
Matt,
we're gonna cover that in 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm about to give you
Okay.
some good
Thank
news.
you.
No problem.
really quick, Matt, for the second part of her question, so you can either turn the captions off, but I do want to let everybody on the call know, if you use that caption off button, it disconnects from the captioning, so you can't turn it back on. So if you're on a call where you think, oh, the speaker could switch, and like, you know, a long call with like a government agency or something, don't turn off the captions if you think the speaker is going to switch, because you will have to disconnect to get the captions back. But alternatively, if you don't have your calls forwarded and you don't need captions on all calls, you can also, because Matt's going to go in the caller ID feature where you can show your own number when calling from InnoCaption. If you have your calls coming in regularly, the minute you think that that person's somebody you need captions with, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, we have a poor connection, let me call you back. And because you're calling back from your same cell phone number, they don't know that you're using captions.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Matt, I'll throw it back to you.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's get into some of the key features. To Tana's point, when you do download InnoCaption, you will be assigned a personal InnoCaption phone number. That InnoCaption phone number is going to match the area code in most cases of your original cell phone number, but the ending is different. Now, don't worry about it. If you don't want to rely on your InnoCaption number, you're still able to use your cell phone number, and we're going to cover that in the next slide. Besides the personal InnoCaption phone number, another key feature is the ability to view the transcript at the end of any call. If you're talking to someone and they shout a phone number or an address and you just happen to miss it, you can keep going with the conversation. After you hang up, you can go to recent calls and click on that recent call to see the transcript of that conversation. Now, as a reminder, Christina already touched on this, but our stenographers, they only capture half of what's being said. So they don't hear your side of the conversation. They're only typing back what the person you're calling or is calling you is saying. So when we say you can view the transcript of the call, it's not going to be the full call. It's just going to be what the other party was saying. We also have caption voicemail. If someone calls you on your InnoCaption number, they can leave you a message and you can get that message transcribed as well. One of the most exciting features that we have is the caller ID settings. And what this does is when you make an outgoing call, you can select which number shows up on the caller ID of the person that you're calling. So for example, when I make an outgoing call, I can select between my InnoCaption number, my cell phone number, or I can block that number from showing on the caller ID as well. Now, this is not something that you need to set up every time you make an outgoing call. So if I go into the InnoCaption app settings and I go into caller ID and I select my cell phone number to show up, then every time I make an outgoing call, that person is going to see my cell phone number and they won't even know that I'm calling them through the InnoCaption app.
Matt, if I could elaborate a little, and by elaborate, I mean tell the little story that I always tell right here. When it comes to our caller ID settings, I like stopping for a second because this is a wonderful example of a feature that was developed because we received feedback from users. Originally, when we launched it, users were able to use their regular number or their InnoCaption number. We added the ability to block because we were hearing from deaf and hard of hearing doctors who were InnoCaption users that they wanted the ability to block their number so they could call patients from their cell phone like their hearing peers, but not have their patients have access to their personal cell phone number. Our engineers were able to implement that pretty quickly. And I just love to talk about that because I feel like it's such a good example of how we are able to implement some of these features our users ask for. So if while you guys are using the InnoCaption app, you have feedback or there's something for your job that if we had a certain feature, it would make it easier for you, you should send us that feedback. It may take a while depending on what it is and the technological feasibility at the time, but we do have an ongoing list of requests from users. And when stuff comes up and we're in development and we're able to do something, we do it. Thank you, Matt.
Yep. So these are some of the features that we added during 2020 last year. And some of them, like Christina said, came about because we heard from users that wanted this. So the first one you see is the multi-language support. And what that means is that InnoCaption is now offering captions in Spanish, however, only through our ASR. So you're not able to get captions in Spanish if you use CART, but you can receive them through our ASR engine. One problem that everybody's having these days is spam calls and robocalls. We've heard from a lot of users that kept getting them. So we went ahead and we implemented a spam call filter in the InnoCaption app. The other feature on the bottom, desk view caption mirroring, this is something that we created to allow people that were calling into conference calls the ability to mirror the captioning from their cell phones onto their computer screens. So if you're about to go in a long conference call and you don't want to hold the phone up throughout that long call, you can log in our desk view portal to receive captions on your computer. And the last feature that you see here is the one that Christina was talking about, the in-call caption mode switch, which allows our users to go from ASR to CART back to ASR in the middle of a call as their accessibility needs change. Now, this is what we're very, very, very excited to be talking about. I'm going to throw it to Paul because he's the one that's been leading the charge in updating the InnoCaption app. We launched this last week, so it hasn't even been a week yet since we've had this update. So Paul, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit more about it?
Sure, thank you very much, Matt. We recently went through a redesign of how our user interface looks. We're showing the basic blue background here, but there are other color options that users can also choose between. But basically, some of the key features that we implemented here is the new caption button, which was on the bottom, that allows you to change between even the language modes mid-call as well. So it just makes for a much more seamless experience. It also lets you turn captions off if you're in a call where you no longer need the captions. And so it just made it a lot more clear in terms of where the buttons sit and how the interface looks as well. Matt, if you go to the next one. We also had received a lot of feedback from users that really liked putting their phones on dark or light mode. So that's with kind of the black or the white background, depending on the time of day. And a lot of times people use these settings on their phone operating system so that at night when the ambient light is darker, you would use the dark mode on the left so that it's not as bright and in your face. Whereas during the daytime, you might opt for the light mode. And so now we have this feature supported on our app as well, and it can even sync up to the rest of your phone setting so that it also follows the time of day, or you just choose one if you really prefer one or the other. And then in the middle, you can see some of the caption screen customizations in terms of different background colors you can choose, different fonts that you can choose as well. We had a user ask if we could put a font in that was a bit more friendly for people that are dyslexic. So we actually went ahead and put that in there as well based on direct user feedback. We also have bold and serif fonts, and the font size you can change here, but you can also change in the middle of a call just by using two fingers to zoom in and out, and that will actually enlarge or make or shrink the caption size as well. And so some very kind of nice new features and customizations that we've added. This is now available for iPhone users, and we hope to have the same new redesign updated by the end of the summer for Android phone users as well.
Great, thanks, Paul. So we just covered the key features. We're gonna open the floor at the end for questions. And right now we're about to go into the frequently asked questions, but I just want to stop again and see if anyone has any questions about anything that we've covered up to this point. Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
I was intrigued by the captions appearing on my desktop screen from my phone. So you're saying I can get a phone call and instead of using my phone, I can just put them on my desktop. I don't get that.
So we're gonna cover that, Sarah. I'll show you in a slide or two. We're gonna talk about desk view captioning. So we're gonna answer your question in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Michael, I see that you have your hand up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Lots of calls I make now go through a automated system. So when I look at my phone, am I going to see captions and am I going to have to toggle to a screen when I want to put in the number that I wish my call to go through? In other words, like I might say, 1 if you want the help desk, 2 if you want human resources, 3 if you want engineering, and so forth. Do I need to toggle between the captions, or is there a button at the end of the screen that enables me to see numbers? That's my first question. My second question is that even after that is answered, I sometimes have to wait sometimes as long as 10, maybe even 15 minutes in an extreme case. Does the ASR or the stenographer time out if I'm going to have to wait that long?
Those are both very good questions, Michael. I was actually seeing if I could, because I know I have a screenshot somewhere, if I could pull it up to show you. I'm not. So this is what it looks like. You actually click the keypad on the bottom of the screen. This is the new Apple one. But the keypad, when you click it, comes up. So you see the captions here.
Yes, I can see. Yeah.
Is right there. So you can click one and you're still able to see the captions.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. For your second question, it is illegal to limit the length of calls on TRS services. So telecommunications relay, generally, people are not able to limit the length of your calls. Our CART providers and our ASR engine will not do that. Now, with that being said, after long holds, if you're on an unstable Wi-Fi or something, you could experience a disconnect, but we have lots of good help desk articles, which Matt will talk about, and other stuff to help ensure our users know what they need in terms of connection and all that to have good, stable calls. But you will never be disconnected by us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Do we have any more questions before we move on? All right. So we're going to go into the frequently asked questions that we get from our users. And the number one, we already got this question here, is, can I use my existing cell phone number? And the answer is yes. All you have to do is go in your caller ID settings and select your cell phone number to show when you make an outgoing call. Now, if you're someone that needs captioning on every single incoming call, then you can set up call forwarding. What this does is that anytime someone calls you on your original cell phone number, that call is automatically routed to your InnoCaption number. So when someone is calling you on your cell phone, they won't even know that that call is being sent to the InnoCaption app. So as long as you put the My Caller ID with the call forwarding options enabled, then you no longer need to rely on your InnoCaption phone number. Now, with that being said, we still have users that like to keep things separate. So it's, again, just more choices that we like to give to our users at the end of the day. Well, what about using my InnoCaption account with multiple devices? And I know that during these presentations, we usually focus on the cell phone. We talk about downloading the app on the cell phone. However, if you have an iPad or an Android tablet, You can also download the app on those devices, and then you can enjoy the captions in even bigger fonts. Another way to use InnoCaption is on your computer with desk view, and we're going to cover that in 1 second. Christina, why don't you go ahead and tell them about how they can use InnoCaption with their landline telephone?
Sure. So there's a feature that we have that you're able to set up in the back of your InnoCaption settings. It's for outgoing calls, and it enables you to hear the audio of the call on your landline headset. The reason we developed this is because there are a lot of people in the deaf and hard of hearing community who have a landline handset that's very compatible with their hearing aid or CI, and they like the audio that they get. And this enables them to still use the cell phone for captions, but it essentially splits off so the audio goes to the landline. The way that works when you have this set up for outgoing calls is when you open your InnoCaption app and you place a call, you'll see a pop-up that says, where do you want to hear the audio? If you click your cell phone, it'll just go through your cell phone regularly. If you click your landline number, your landline will ring, you answer it, and then the call goes through. So it's just another feature to help our users have the best of both worlds in terms of being able to use the handset or Bluetooth functionality that you want with the InnoCaption app. Can I make 911 calls? We get this question all the time, and the answer is yes. You can make a 911 call in the InnoCaption app. I always like to say here that, give a disclaimer that it's always safer to call 911 from a landline device. The reason for that is, with the limitations of cellular technology, your landline has a connection that is plugged into the wall, so it's not relying on Wi-Fi or cellular data. It also has a fixed address associated with the location of that landline. When you call 911 on InnoCaption or any cell phone, so this is not a limitation of InnoCaption, again, just more cellular technology. If they have to ping your phone to figure out where you are, it'll get them within 200 to 300 feet, and then they have to ask you additional questions. It will tell them maybe what building you're in, but it won't tell them the floor, and it won't tell them the unit. So we always like to start out this conversation by saying it is always safer to call from a landline. When you call 911 on the InnoCaption app, what you can expect is to be connected to our emergency relay center. That is not your local 911 center. That relay center will ask you for your location, your name, your callback number. And at that point, if you don't know where you are, you can tell that first operator, I'm not sure where I am. They're able to hit any key on their console and grab the XY coordinates, your location data from your phone. Again, if you know where you are, don't test it out, because it takes longer in an emergency to pull location from a phone than it does if you just tell them. And again, with the limitations in cellular technology, it's better to just give them the address. Based on that address, they route you to your local 911 center. At that time, when they're connecting the calls, that is the only time InnoCaption ever discloses that you have a hearing loss. And it's the only time there's ever a voice channel to disclose you have a hearing loss. The first operator will tell the 911 center, I have a deaf or hard of hearing InnoCaption user for you. They will be speaking to you with their own voice, but they do have a hearing loss. This is incredibly helpful for the 911 operators to know, because they're able to tell emergency personnel who's coming to help you out that the individual they're approaching may not hear them, whatever the case may be. And it's also helpful because in an emergency situation, even if the captions are perfect, there's generally a level of shock. So the 911 operator will know you have a hearing loss if there's some delay in you responding to them. This review on the right-hand side of the screen was an experience a user shared with us. It wasn't a 911 call, but it was an emergency situation. We were so grateful this user took the time to let us know that during Hurricane Delta, they actually had a tree that was blown over and it was tilting closer and closer to their house, but they couldn't use their landline phone because they didn't have any power. So the phones were out. And instead of having to wait until it hit their house, they were able to use InnoCaption to call for an emergency tree removal service to take the tree out. It really means the world to us when our users take the time to share their experiences with us, especially when it's in a public forum like Facebook or the App Store or the Play Store, because it's one thing for us to sit here and tell users about our service or share these experiences, but it's completely different for somebody else in the community who has hearing loss to be sharing their experiences with accessible technology. And by sharing your experiences, you can help somebody who's potentially feeling overwhelmed, not sure what to choose, go in one direction or another. Can I use Zoom for InnoCaption meetings? The short answer is yes, you can. And before I get into this explanation, Sarah, I know you were asking about the desk view feature. This is how it works. You still call out from your phone. It's not a computer app. You go to our InnoCaption website, and in the upper, it's middle right now, you can log in. Once you log into your account, there's a big button that says View Captions, and it actually mirrors in a screen just like you're seeing here. This one's blue, but it actually gives a really good, it gives a lot of customization options, making it very accessible for those who are not only hard of hearing, but have vision impairments, because they have greater flexibility over the size, the font, the text colors, and the backgrounds. Matt, if you could go back one minute. Thank you. So as you see, this is the box. They positioned it to the right of the Zoom page, but it's flexible, so you can put it wherever on the screen that's easiest for you. So when people ask if they can use InnoCaption during Zoom meetings, the answer is generally yes, you can. You can use InnoCaption wherever there's a dial-in. So there has to be a phone number to be able to use InnoCaption. Matt, you can go to the next slide now. Thank you. InnoCaption can't be used to caption in-person conversations, and it can't be used in any situation where CART services would normally be provided. So when the pandemic hit, obviously everybody went remote. A good rule of thumb that I use is to determine whether or not InnoCaption's being used as a substitute is, would this meeting or webinar or whatever it is have a CART provider if it was in person? And are you only using InnoCaption to not have to pay for a CART provider? If that's the case, then it's illegal to use InnoCaption for that reason, because it's not a substitute for CART. You can use InnoCaption for any call a hearing person would make. So a hearing person calls family members, calls into telehealth appointments, calls into webinars. As a hearing person, I would never stand in my living room with a plumber in front of me and say, oh, I'm not sure what you're saying, let me call you. That's where it crosses the line into illegal use. Now, even if you can use InnoCaption, I always like, especially now during the pandemic, I like to talk about the differences between on-demand CART, like InnoCaption provides, and a CART provider that you contract with. So a CART provider that you contract with gets preparation materials ahead of time generally. They are in the meetings with you. If it's a Zoom meeting, they're generally logged in. They're able to communicate with you if there's a connection issue. They're able to see who exactly is speaking, so they can label the speakers for the individual. Because they're able to prepare if there's technical information or anything like that, they're able to program their dictionaries ahead of time, and they have context for the conversation. Our CART providers are very highly trained individuals, very talented, but when you call into InnoCaption, they have no context as to what they're going into. They're not sure who the speaker is. They're not sure what the conversation is going to be about. So I always try to just advocate and educate that where your employer or organizations will provide you with a CART provider to contract directly, and that's something you're comfortable with, you should still ask for that. Now, obviously, InnoCaption is a great service. If you have not disclosed your hearing loss, or there's a reason that you're intentionally not requesting CART, it is within your legal right to use InnoCaption. I just like to make sure that we talk about kind of the differences between contracting directly with a CART provider and the service that you receive on the InnoCaption app. Calling healthcare providers. This is something that, you know, in 2021 shouldn't really be an issue, but it still is. Not as much for individuals who use caption telephone services. It affects video relay service and IP relay users more because the CA announces themselves. But I've heard and seen an increase in posts from individuals online who are deaf or hard of hearing talking about how their doctor's office or healthcare provider will not talk to them on the relay service. I've seen it happen with caption phones, and generally it happens when the user is being very transparent and says, oh, here, this is my caption phone number, call me here. And then the doctor's office says, no, there's a third party on the line. We won't talk to you through that. Your HIPAA privacy rights belong to you. And if your doctor's office or a healthcare provider tells you that, that is not correct. This slide we included in here, and at the bottom, Matt's going to send this presentation out. There's a link to this public notice. The FCC years ago worked with the Department of Health and Human Services to issue this public notice with a clarification saying that people who have hearing, who are deaf or hard of hearing, are able to use telecommunications relay services like InnoCaption or VRS or IP relay to talk to the other party, and it does not violate the privacy rule of HIPAA. There's a lot more technical information in that public order, but if you guys ever lose the PowerPoint or have any questions about that or need it again, you can always email me, and even if it's not to use our service, I'm happy to provide you with that public notice and any other information I have that can help you advocate and educate.
Great, thanks, Christina. So we are getting close to the end of the presentation, but before we do that, we always like to show people how they can contact us if they have any questions, if they have suggestions, or if they're having any issues with their InnoCaption app. So there's a few different ways. Like we've mentioned before, we have a help center now that you can access by going on our website. In that help center, you can find different articles that cover all of the features available in the InnoCaption app. So for example, if you're trying to make a call and it's not going out, you can type in the help center outgoing call or incoming call, and then you see different articles that have step-by-step on how to fix those things. Now, if you go in the help center and you're still not able to find the article that you're looking for, then you can definitely contact our support team by emailing them at support@innocaption.com. Now, besides those two ways of contacting us, we also have our social channels. We're very active on Facebook, where we're always updating our users on the latest with InnoCaption. Besides Facebook, we also have Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, where we have a YouTube channel. So there's several different ways as to how you can find information about InnoCaption. Now, if you need brochures, you can email us at marketing@innocaption.com. That email just comes to me. So if you need anything to hand out to your chapter members, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to put a package together and send it your way. If anybody has any questions when it comes to the FCC or eligibility demo accounts, then you can email us at regulatory@innocaption.com, and that one just goes straight to Christina. Besides those two emails, if anybody has any questions and wants to contact me directly, you can just email Matt, M-A-T-T, @innocaption.com. But that pretty much covers our presentation. Thank you again, Sarah, for hosting us, and thanks everybody for being here. We're gonna open the floor for questions. We're not in a hurry to go anywhere, so we'll be here for as long as you guys have questions.
I just want to say I'm incredibly jealous that Matt's email address is never misspelled, because it's just M-A-T-T. I can never give out mine because my parents didn't put an H in my name. So everybody misspells it and I never get my emails, which is why regulatory at InnoCaption is always the safe bet to get a hold of me. Tana, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, this may or not be a question, but I'm confused by it. I'm wondering if you could walk me through what happens when a hearing aid is connected by Bluetooth to the cell phone. Does it, because you're connecting to one or two different numbers, does it affect the quality of the sound? I'm just confused.
Yeah, Tana, that's actually the best way to use the InnoCaption app is if you have a hearing aid or a CI that's Bluetooth enabled. As long as it's connected to the phone, if you get an incoming call or if you make an outgoing call, you will receive sound through the Bluetooth. Now, in the app, there's a button that will give you different options as to how you want to receive the sound. But again, if you want to have a private conversation, if there's people around, the best way to do it is sending the sound straight to the hearing aid. By default, it's on speakerphone mode. But like I said, you can change the way the sound is given to you.
And Tana, just to elaborate a little on what Matt said, as far as your hearing aid connecting, as far as your hearing aid is concerned, it's just connecting to your phone. So having the InnoCaption number or the regular number, it really doesn't impact what that connection is. So you'll have the same experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sarah,
you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you all. This is so great. One thing you didn't mention, I use my iPad for everything. And I've noticed with my new iPhone that it does ring on my iPad. And today I tried answering a phone call on my iPad, and it actually worked. I mean, I could barely hear, but is that an option or?
yes, Sarah. So when you have them installed on both devices, it'll ring on both. You answer on the one that you want it to. If you could barely hear it, make sure that the speakerphone is on, because I do that all the time when I'm testing InnoCaption. I forget that I don't have the speakerphone automated and I'll be like, this sounds really low, and I'm turning it all the way up. And then I realize I just don't have it on speakerphone.
Thank you, that's helpful. One more question.
Sure.
Which might be dumb, but can you use it with WhatsApp?
No. So unfortunately, we can only be used with, sorry, in my head, because I have WhatsApp, I'm trying to think. Paul, with WhatsApp, like nobody would be able to call into the InnoCaption app from WhatsApp, would they?
That's right. So WhatsApp would be a separate communication channel. So we get a lot of questions around, can I use it with WhatsApp or FaceTime or some of these other applications that are used for communication? Unfortunately, our service as an FCC regulated telecommunications relay service needs to go through the telephone lines. And because WhatsApp and FaceTime actually are app-to-app communication methods, they don't actually go through the telephone system. There's no phone number associated. So unfortunately, we aren't able to offer it for those services.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks for taking that, Paul. I knew the answer was no, and then when I tried to explain why, I had a block. Michael, what?
I wanted to ask Matt that if I'm receiving an incoming call, I think that my phone will say accept or decline. Then my phone will say to me, which way do I want to receive the audio, whether it's on speaker or, as Matt is saying, my preference will be to go over to Bluetooth. So I would use my Bluetooth connection. And then I would go to the InnoCaption. Is that correct? I'm just trying to understand exactly how incoming calls will appear on my cell phone if I were to have InnoCaption.
Yes. So when you have a call come in, it'll ring like it would on your native dialer, but it's coming through InnoCaption. So you answer, the call is going to come up, and then there is a If you have if the default is to go to your hearing aids, it will go to your hearing aids. It'll go to wherever the default is, but you are also able to click on the speaker icon to assign it. So if it, for some reason, it doesn't go to your Bluetooth hearing aids and you hit the speaker icon, just like on a regular call, it'll give you the 3 options, you know, speaker, iPhone, Bluetooth, of where you would like to connect. So you don't, what I'm trying to say is you wouldn't answer and then connect and then go to InnoCaption. It's more seamless than that. It should all connect seamlessly. But if it doesn't, you're able to select it like you normally would.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I believe it when I see it.
And Michael, to Christina's point, it's one of those things that it sounds a lot more confusing than it is. Once you, if you do try to give us a try, you see that as soon as an incoming call goes, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's just pressing a button and the app pops up.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks.
No
Michael,
problem.
I think it's fair. You'll believe it when you see it. We tell people all the time, we're like, we can tell you forever about the app, but it really, even when our co-CEO found the technology, he was telling us about it. He's like, oh, this is awesome. And you know, we were like, yeah, okay, sure. And I think that's very normal, especially with all the technology available these days, to hold off until you actually see it. So very fair. Arlene, you have your hand up.
Yes, first of all, this was great. I think the last time we saw you guys was in Rochester, you know, at the HLAA convention, and having hands-on the equipment in that exhibit hall makes all of this much easier to explain. Personally, the pandemic kind of altered my telephone use. I can use the phone, okay, but for conference calls, I couldn't. Teleconference calls, but with the pandemic, everything was Zoom. And so it became more accessible for me. So I have InnoCaption on my phone, but now that everything is not just a teleconference, I don't really use that. But I really, I love that you have done so much since Rochester. And I like to keep up because, you know, as wonderful as these things are, things can happen, and you really have to know how to use all the technology as it exists. And you guys have come up with so much more since the last time I had contact with you. So thank you so much. And I'm in New Jersey. I'm not anywhere near all these people, but I really appreciate having this opportunity, and for the chapters to open their meetings up to anybody wherever you are. So thank you all you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Arlene. It has been a while. It seems like Rochester was yesterday, but with the pandemic, everything's just kind of fusing together. So yeah, since Rochester, we have had a lot of updates. I feel like we were just announcing InnoCaption Plus when we were at Rochester. And now, you know, we have a whole new user interface and all of these new features. And
absolutely, I mean, I didn't expect to get all this information when I logged on here. So yeah, whenever you go beyond my expectations, let me tell you, you're doing something really right.
Thank you so much, Arlene. We really appreciate that feedback. And again, we'd like to emphasize that if you don't have InnoCaption and you download the app and you see that there's something missing, please let us know, because we do love getting feedback. We won't take it personally. We know the app isn't perfect and there is always room for improvement. And our main goal is to bring an equal level of accessibility when it comes to cell phone technology. So we do want to make our app just as close as the cell phone is for a hearing person. So if you see if there's anything missing, you can email matt@innocaption.com, support@innocaption.com. You can email anybody at innocaption.com, and we'll be more than happy to send that over to our engineers.
And I will tell you one thing that does happen. I have an InnoCaption phone number, right? That I never gave out to anybody because I don't use that. So all your telemarketing garbage calls, they call that number, and I know it's garbage. So I delete as soon as I see it. I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody uses all these devices very personally, very, you know, and you have so many ways, depending on your actual needs, to use this effectively. So again, just bravo, this is amazing.
We really appreciate that. I don't see anybody else with hands up, but before we leave, and I'm not saying we're leaving now, but I would just like to get a picture with everybody so we can post it on our Facebook page. We understand that some people might not want to be in the picture, so you can go ahead and turn your camera off if you're not comfortable. But if you are okay with that, I will do a countdown before I take the picture with everybody. And Tona, I see that you have your hand up. We're not going to go anywhere, I promise.
I don't have a question. I just want to say I went to your previous meeting and this one, and I really appreciated this one. I learned so much more, and I'm very glad that you guys met with us in such a small group. It was, as Christina said, it's a different flavor of a meeting, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah, like we said, I don't know if everybody was here in the beginning, but we were saying how we do love smaller presentations because we feel like we get the chance to talk to people. The bigger the presentation, we feel like people might have a hard time raising their hands if they have a question, or they just wait on someone to ask that question.
Right.
So we don't find the same thing when we do these smaller ones. So we love this. Yes, absolutely. And I'm very happy that you were here for both of them. So thank you for sitting through 2 presentations from us. All right, I'm gonna do a quick countdown. Everybody, thank you so much again. So 3, 2.
Question.
Oh, I see you, Jim. Hold on 1 second. Great, thanks everybody. Yes, Jim, go ahead.
So I'm Sarah's husband. So if Sarah got the InnoCaption app in InnoCaption and put it on her iPad, and then the next HLAA meeting, she could log in on her iPad to the Zoom phone number and then bring up captions of the Zoom meeting on her iPad, which would be a lot larger, reading the captions on the iPad than reading them from on the Zoom screen. Is that correct?
Yes, but when you guys met in person, did you guys have a cart provider?
Sometimes, but not all the time.
So, you know, that's one of those things that you have to gauge whether or not it would be used as a substitute for cart or not, because if it is a substitute for cart, then you can't do it. If it's not a substitute for cart.
Okay,
then...
well, just for the ASR I'm talking about, not for a live person.
Oh, so actually the rule applies both ways, because since we're funded from the Telecommunications Relay Services Fund, regardless of whether you're using CART or ASR on that call, you're not supposed to use it as a substitution for in-person services. But you should be able to use it in the situation that you don't normally have CART in person, and if that's something that would be helpful for the accessibility of everybody here.
So I'm sure you've run tests. So when somebody does that, how does it, the closed captions from in your company on a Zoom meeting compared to the closed captions that they're using now on Zoom?
So it really depends on several factors. It's going to depend on the connection for each of the speakers. It'll depend on the connection of the person. So let's say Sarah is the one that has it on her phone and is mirroring desk view. If for some reason your Wi-Fi connection isn't stable, or your you don't have good LTE connection, that can impact the quality of the captions. You know, as legal, I feel like it's my job to say all these disclaimers. It's not as bad as I make it sound. I just always like to manage expectations in the case of saying, hey, it can be really good here, but these are the things to look out for that could impact the quality. I never want to oversell a technology in the sense of saying, oh yeah, it'll be perfect, when again, there's several factors that we can't control as InnoCaption, like the speaker and the connection.
So my question was really, Zoom now has live transcribe, which is a new feature, like this meeting has closed captions. So if somebody had the innovation, or your company, and they were using their iPad with closed captions, and they were also using live transcribe with closed captions, are both the Zoom closed captions Google and your closed captions Google? So would they be the same, or would they be slightly different?
That's a good question. I believe Tana had said Zoom uses Otter, and to be honest with you, I know that we use Google. I have not looked into what platform Zoom uses. Tana, if you want to speak to that, if you know.
I believe that Zoom uses Otter. Currently, they used RevCat and a bunch of other ones that you could pay for before. But I have an Apple phone, and we can't get Google's Live Transcribe on Apple currently. And I do believe Google Meet, which has way better captions than Zoom does. So, and even people in hearing loss groups have commented on that. So I would think that you would get better captions on a Zoom meeting using your Google ASR than you would using Otter ASR that comes with Zoom. But that's my personal opinion.
So another question would be, how does your captioning compare to Google ASR, which is available on Live Transcribe on an Android phone?
That is a great question. To be honest with you, I've used Google Live Transcribe for in-person conversations because Google Live Transcribe is not actually available for phone calls. So they're two different technologies for two different reasons that you use for two different purposes. InnoCaption is for phone calls and for dial-ins. Google Live Transcribe is for in-person conversations. They may have a way now to provide captions on the computer. As a hearing person, I try to avoid commenting on this technology is definitely better than this one, because from what I found, because everybody's accessibility needs are so different, it really, you can ask one person and they'll say, oh, Zoom captions are the best and Otter is the way to go. And then you ask somebody else and they say, no, definitely not. I hate Zoom captions. Otter doesn't work for me. I need to use Google Live Transcribe. So anything that I would provide would be an opinion and not an opinion of somebody with hearing loss myself.
Okay, and another question, does it make a difference what platform you're using? If I'm using an iPad or a Chromebook or an iPhone, are you trying to make all the platforms the same, or are there slight differences?
In the sense of the InnoCaption app?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
is there something one can do better, like you can download the text better, or it's larger, or whatever, more lines?
So that's a great question. Currently, so to download the app, it has to be an Android base or Apple base. And the application on Apple is the new design. So it has the refreshed user interface and the more modern look and a couple additional features. The Android has the older version of our app, but as Paul had mentioned, our engineers are actively working to make both the same. Our goal is always to have the platform looking the same across all technologies.
So the iPhone and the iPad would be the same?
Yes, iPhone and iPad would be the same.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
And I just wanted to add that we don't actually have like a computer-based application. So our desk view feature is web browser based. And so that's just, again, for mirroring the captions that you would see on your phone on a web browser. So we currently don't have a separate application on that front. But when it comes to iPad, iPhone, Android phone, Android tablet, they will all be converging into one. iPad and iPhone are already very similar, just the main difference being the screen size difference. And so you can get a larger font on an iPad or any tablet device versus a phone. But in terms of the caption quality, how it works between ASR and stenographer, those are all the same between those applications. The only other thing I would mention is, we talked a lot about different ASR engines. At the end of the day, I would again just remind that the key differentiation for us is that we don't have just ASR. We also have our live stenographers, and you're able to switch between those modes in the call. And so I think what you will find that is very different, which you won't find on any other platform, is that ability that if there's all of a sudden a speaker whose voice doesn't work with ASR engines, whichever engine that may be, you always have the option to switch it over to a live person. And that's something that really is only available on our platform. I think Ellen had her hand up.
Ellen, you're
Ellen,
muted.
Okay. I have never had a cell phone, and I've been considering buying a jitterbug, but you keep mentioning that only iPhone or Android can carry.
Yeah, Ellen. Oh, sorry. I think you froze for a second.
That's okay. I just don't understand. Is Jitterbug one of those, or would I have to consider something else in order to get this app?
Jitterbug does have an Android platform, but you may want to consider getting a different device if you want help from others in troubleshooting. What I've found with the Jitterbug phones is they tried to simplify it so much that it actually makes troubleshooting very difficult. I know Matt and I knew the Android platform very well, and actually one Thanksgiving drove through Pennsylvania and stopped at a user's retirement home to try to figure out what the issue was with the app. It has, there's a lot of safety features on the Jitterbug that clash with InnoCaption, with like the location services and all that. And this one user at the end of the day was telling us, I thought it would be easier, but nobody can help me troubleshoot this thing. So it is something to consider. If you feel very comfortable with using it and that you know how it works, great. But if the purpose of getting it is something that is easier to use and that people can help you with, you may not want to go with those devices because it's incredibly difficult for other people, even with Android platforms, to help you and figure out like what the settings are.
And
Okay,
Ellen,
thank you.
Ellen, you're definitely not the first person that has brought this up to us. Ever since we launched the app, when we go to conferences, we hear from a lot of people that said the exact same things. Like, I didn't have a cell phone, but maybe now is the time for me to get one. What we've been doing for years now is helping those people make those decisions to a certain level. So if you have questions on the differences between what an Android phone is and what an iPhone is, send us an email. Just because it's not related to InnoCaption, we're still happy to help with that as well.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
You're very welcome. Something that I've told a couple users is if you have people in your area, whether it's family or friends who are tech savvy and you're expecting to ask them for help or ask questions, sometimes I won't say, get this device or this device, but get the platform, whether it's Apple or Android, that is the same platform those people use, because it'll be easier for them to help you if they're already using the same platform every day.
And Tana, you have a question?
I just like a point of clarification. I thought earlier when I asked about what ASR you use that Christina said Google, but then I just heard that it's different from the Google Live Transcribe that's used for live voice capture or conversation. Can you clarify that a little bit?
Absolutely. I'm sorry for causing the confusion. What I meant when Jim was asking about the Google Live Transcribe app, the Google Live Transcribe application is meant for in-person conversations. Now, they use, obviously, Google ASR. It's Google Live Transcribe, and we use the same back and Google ASR. Both of those apps may have different proprietary tweaks, like we have our own tweaks. I'm sure they do too. But the apps themselves, not the back-end technology, the apps themselves are for different purposes. One is for in-person and one is for the phone. I'm sorry for making that sound so convoluted.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? All right, I think we covered everything then.
So Tawna, oh, you're finished with your questions. Okay, so thank you so much, Paul and Christina and Matt, for the very thorough presentation. I did see your other presentation, and I'm in the category that has to see things a few times to figure it out. So it's helpful, and I'll look at other recordings that from other presentations you've made. Anyway, we appreciate all the attention that you've given us today, and we wish you well, and I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for hosting us. Thanks everybody for making the time to be here. Again, if anybody has any questions at all, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to help. All right. Thanks so much. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
So please stay tuned for our chapter meeting. I have an update of what's going on in the chapter, and everybody's welcome to stay.